It is the Week 2 Columbia Football Coaches Show presented by Amity Hall Uptown. Hello, everyone. I'm Lance Meadow here on GoColumbiaLions.com as Columbia gears up for its home opener against Georgetown this week. As always, we're joined by head coach John Poppe. John, appreciate the time. Before we get into Georgetown, let's look back at the opener against Lafayette. Clearly did not go according to plan. I want to go back to the start of the third quarter. It was 17-14 at the half, very much in the thick of things. Lafayette, goes on a 14-play, 75-yard drive, and then an interception. They tack on another touchdown. How much did that sequence truly be the big turning point that you look back in on that contest?
There's no question those sequence of plays and those two drives were the deciding factor in the game. And, I appreciate our offense battling back and driving the football down to the 1-yard line and having a chance to stay in that game. Just didn't execute well enough in that short yardage situation. And we thought we were going to get some more downs with Titus Evans' catch, and then that got overruled, and then you had the targeting that got overruled. So there were some different things in breaks in action that it just felt like the whole night went that way, right? It was very stagnant. It wasn't really smooth in terms of the operation, and that's where hopefully we got those game one mistakes and miscommunications and misassignments out of our system.
232 rushing yards for the Leopards. I mean, clearly that jumps off the page. How much is that a huge point of emphasis in terms of film study and moving into this Georgetown game about cleaning that up moving forward here?
Yeah, we just got to do a much better job of executing our base defense. And that's what's, I think, for us alarming, is that we were not great in our base defense. And that starts with us as coaches looking at us to say, okay, is this the right system for us right now, the right scheme for our personnel? And so there was a deep dive into us really in terms of what we're trying to accomplish as we move forward this season. And our players played their tails off, and I was really proud of how, if you watch the tape and revisiting the tape after they scored the last touchdown 38-7, our field goal block team is still coming up off the ball the right way with the right technique and selling out for a block no matter what the score was. So I thought our guys did a good job removing circumstances and environment from parts of the game, not necessarily all the way through. And so hopefully this week we do a much better job of controlling our gaps, coming off the ball, and playing with the level of physicality that we're capable of playing with.
Last week when we previewed the roster, we talked about there's a bit of a youth movement, right, on both sides of the ball. When you look back at last week, 16 players got their collegiate debuts. Not that you're looking to make excuses, John, but how much is this perhaps a bit of the growing pains that you have to go through as a team when you are infusing so much new talent onto this roster?
Yeah, there's definitely some newer relationship building occurring, new communication across the board, how guys can relate to each other in terms of playing off of a D lineman that's a young player, playing off a veteran linebacker, and vice versa, and even the young secondary communication, how that's going across the board. But I really don't see that as an excuse. We expected them to play great football. We just didn't, and that's on us as coaches to make sure as we move forward, we're structuring practice the right way to make sure that we're simulating as much as possible some challenging and adverse moments for these young guys. But I thought, for the most part, the guys experiencing their first start, their first collegiate action, performed very admirably.
Well, speaking of experience, this was the first of 4 Friday night games under the lights this season. The rest is going to be in Ivy League play. But what at all do you maybe look to tweak after going through this experience against Lafayette that you'll apply to the next 3 contests in this format?
I think the sun at 6 o'clock was a little different. That was an expectation, tough to simulate in camp, and that was difficult for our guys. And they put us in the sun right away, which is good by them when we chose the ball, when we lost the coin toss. But really for us, our players, and visiting with them the next day, really appreciated the schedule, what we had planned, how we mapped it out, how we involved football side of things with relaxed time in terms of getting their mindset the right way and calibrated the right way. So I don't think we're going to do much tweaking. I think it just comes down to making sure we're prepared, in terms of as coaches and players to play the game and execute the game the way we're capable of doing.
Chase Goodwin obviously had his season cut short last year, so this was his first game back, and a number of other players specifically on the offensive line. Mentally, how big was it for some of these players, specifically Chase, to get back on the field regardless of the result as you look to build upon this here in the upcoming games?
Yeah, I think with the first game at the quarterback position, it's always fun to get back out there, and now you can see certain things, right, in terms of, did I take a too far drop, and learn from that, and now being comfortable in the pocket. Because I thought we did a great job protecting Chase overall. We gave up the 2 pressures, which I wish we didn't, that affected 2 throws. It could have been explosive plays. We had the matchup we want. We had a receiver in the right location, and credit to Lafayette, their player made a play that changed that particular moment in their favor. So we got to do a little bit better job in just terms of making sure all 11 are executing on the same play. And I thought Chase, the game got away from us, so it affected his stat line a little bit. It's not nearly indicative to the way he played. I know he wants that one throwback. We fixed that error. That should not happen again, and now just getting Chase back to being Chase and what made him a great player in those games he played with last year, which I fully anticipate him doing this week.
And there will be an opportunity to bounce back this week against Georgetown. We'll step aside. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to the Lou Little Cup. Yep, the annual tradition continues here in New York City. It's the Week 2 Columbia Coaches Show presented by Amity Hall Uptown. We'll be back right after this.
Amity Hall Uptown is the premier sports destination on the Upper West Side and the official home to Columbia University Athletics. Located just 951 steps from campus, Amity Hall is and will always be your home away from home.
Lance Meadow back here on GoColumbiaLions.com as we move forward with the Week 2 Columbia Coaches Football Show. John Poppe here with us. It is presented by Amity Hall Uptown. So, John, let's now turn our attention to another Patriot League foe that you're going up against here in the Hoyas. This is a tradition game. This is a pride game, a rivalry game. What's the approach maybe different about the Lou Little Cup compared to some of the other non-conference games that you went through?
There's a meaning to it, but I think for us, especially coming off last week, we need to get back to just focusing on us. So that really trying to remove external factors, external focus, and focusing on our guys executing their assignments, snap in and snap out, and making sure we stay present and not really focus on anything that is outside of our control or that doesn't affect a win and loss.
Well, let's dive into the Hoyas a little bit. Interestingly, they played Lafayette 2 weeks ago. Close game, 42-37. Last week, they play a team you're familiar with in Brown in the Ivy League, and they lose 46-0. So I guess the million-dollar question is, when you look at the film, where does this Georgetown team fall? Are they more of the team that played against Brown, or are they more of the team that you saw against Lafayette 2 weeks ago?
I think just they're going to be motivated to play and prove that that was not who Georgetown football is, right? What showed up last week is not what we're going to get. We have zero illusions to think differently. And I think for us, it's not to sound cliche, but it really is. Because of what we did, we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. And we're excited to play Georgetown again. Obviously, there's a revenge factor for us from a year ago and how that game finished. So I think our guys are really hungry to kick the ball off and show for 60 minutes that we can play a complete football game.
You referenced last year's game, 20-17. They score with just under 2 minutes to go. How much personnel-wise, because there are a number of returning players at Georgetown, specifically their receivers, do you look back at specifically situational gameplay down the stretch of that game?
Absolutely we do, right? In terms of where the quarterbacks like to go to the ball with this situation, whether it's Jimmy Kibble or it's Nick Dunneman or it's some of their other rising receivers, Brock Beestick, number 5 and number 80 now, who's shown some, movement in the perimeter and done some good things in his route running, and it came into the end of the Brown game as a punt returner. So I think for us situationally, we know who their go-to guys are, but that doesn't mean we can ignore the other pieces because they do have a great set of skill guys that we have to make sure we're taking off the board with our zone coverage. We just got to play tighter. I think that's the biggest thing that we corrected after this game a year ago is we played tighter coverage in terms of not just giving up the free yardage, the easy access, and that's where we need to continue to do a great job, and then also being disciplined where those 2 explosive plays that still haunt me, where we jumped off sides and they hit it for big gains, that kind of changed the complexion a little bit in Georgetown's favor.
And Danny Lauder was the quarterback for the Hoyas last year, 292 yards. He did not play in the last game against Brown. His last appearance was Lafayette. It seems as if maybe Des Thomas, who got the start last game, will be under center. I guess my question to you, John, is skill set-wise, what changes, what differentiates between what Lauder presents for their offense under center versus what they operate with when Thomas is there?
I mean, Des has played every game they've played to date. I mean, he's mixed in, he's run the ball, he's thrown the ball, he's operated their offense. So we anticipate Georgetown coming in with their offense and executing at a high level. Lauder, obviously, a little bit more of the pocket guy, the pure passer. You can see him spread the ball, distribute the ball very well. He throws on time, where Des is a little bit more of that wild card. He's going to make plays with his feet and do some different things and create explosive down the field because he can extend plays. And that showed up a couple times in the Brown game where he got outside the pocket and they hit a big gain because of that ability. So we got to make sure we're doing a great job of keeping him in the pocket, keep him contained, and not let his legs extend drives.
Georgetown has been an opportunistic team, it seems, right, over the years, and even earlier this season. It goes without saying, John, you're always emphasizing ball security, but I guess how much more of a heightened awareness does that take on when you're playing a team like Georgetown that basically likes to have part of its identity switching field positioning.
Yeah, they've done a great job taking the ball away. I think they're
Yep.
+8 on the season, which from our game a year ago, they did
Sure.
a tremendous job. And then that's the leading statistic, right? And even throughout my short tenure here so far, every game we've lost a turnover battle, we've lost. Right? Every game we've won the turnover battle, we've won. So I think that's a key stat for our team, and what we're doing this week is to make sure that we're winning that turnover battle, or at least we're not losing it, right? We want to make sure we're having as clean a game as possible in the return side of things, and also the offensive side of things, even defensively. We happen to have opportunity to take the ball away, making sure we secure it, so our offense is on the field the next play. But that's a huge part of this game, there's no doubt.
I want to flip the script to your team before we wrap up here. We talked about the run game for Lafayette, but I thought there were some bright spots for your run game last week. I mean, Griffin obviously got into the end zone, but we also saw Michael Walters for the first time, and I'm sure that's exciting for a lot of Columbia fans. First-year player, had over 60 rushing yards. What did he show you, and how excited are you in terms of what he now can provide as an extra layer to that ground attack here?
Yeah, he's mature beyond his years, in more ways than one, off the field too. And we were very high on Michael coming into our program, and he proved to be a very difficult back, or an unfun one to tackle, right? I mean, there were a couple of instances where he lowered his shoulder, and those Lafayette tacklers felt it a little bit. And I think for us, what's really impressive about Michael is how quickly he's adjusted to our scheme, how natural he is at setting up blocks and wiggling his way through the hole and making the right decisions. That's been really fun to watch as a coach, knowing that we're kind of overrated with Michael, how quickly he's developed. And even Lucas Bullock, I thought, had some good runs and did some good things for us. So we're really excited about the running backs, and hopefully now, right, we're controlling the game flow a little bit more. We get a couple more stops so we can continue the ground game, because it was starting to go at the end of that first half, and unfortunately we just had to get away from it based on how the game played out.
When you're playing from behind, obviously the dynamics change, and also it influences time of possession as well, which was a factor in that last game. Never fun when you got to bring down a 6'2" running back. Not that I could speak from experience, John, but I think on paper that at least passes the litmus test.
Fun.
Well, listen, always a pleasure, and best of luck this weekend. Appreciate it, John. Absolutely. That is the Week 2 Columbia Football Coaches Show. It's presented by Amity Hall Uptown. It is Georgetown against Columbia here in the Big Apple. I'll be on the call with Sean Fitzgerald. It kicks off at noon Eastern on ESPN+.